Can we all just calm the down? We're 3 weeks into a new season, and it's gone from zero to utter hysteria and panic in the course of 3 match days. And I wanted to talk about a game which wasn't great, I'll be honest. But now I feel like I have to talk about the reaction to the game more than anything else, and the implications of what people are suggesting. Firing the manager right now, and what the repercussions of that will mean. I'll also preview the Bolton game. I will talk about this transfer rumor, which has turned into a transfer saga. I'll tell you who I think should absolutely and 100% be the next person to be shown the door at Villa Park. And by the way, when you need to calm the down, may I recommend turning to Scapa, the Orcadian from the Orkney Isles. It's salty, like the people who will be drinking it, as we review Crystal Palace 3 and Aston Villa 1. So the hot rumor which broke just after the Crystal Palace game was Watford's Ismaila Sarr to Aston Villa, a fee agreed to apparently anywhere between 24 and 28 million. The medical was completed, the personal terms were up in the air, and that was the last thing I heard before recording the show. But the question everybody is asking is this the player that Aston Villa really needs right now? And if we're allocating funds to this player, does that mean we're taking them away from potentially the number 8 that we keep talking about and a replacement for Diego Carlos at center back? First thing is, I love this player. This player is explosive, technical, tidy, quick, intelligent, and very unusual in that he's a right-footed, right-sided winger. And that's where he prefers to be. He doesn't prefer to be an inverted winger. So everybody immediately says, well, we already have Leon Bailey, and he's actually in a good run of form. Now, Leon Bailey can play on the left-hand side, as we saw when he first arrived. The goal he scored against Everton, of course, was from the left-hand side. It is a valid question to ask, and so is, who decides these transfers? Is it Steven Gerrard in isolation? Is it Johan Lange? Do they work together? Does one veto the other? What does Christian Purslow have to say? This is an issue that if it is not crystal clear, then I have deep, troubling worries about the state of my beloved football club. So I guess that's the big issue, because the player is fantastic. I could imagine Sarr on the right, Bailey on the left, Watkins up front as being a very difficult and frankly awful proposition for an opponent. And if this is in addition to future prospective transfers, then to be honest with you, I'm all for it. But it does make you wonder. The profile of this player does not suit what we've been seeing since Steven Gerrard arrived, a narrow forward setup with the fullbacks overlapping. Has there been a change? Has somebody seen the light? Has Neil Critchley come in and said, Gaffer, we can't play this way. Our fullbacks need to drop a little bit more. Let's get some out-and-out wingers. We don't know the answers to those questions. We are not behind the scenes. But just to reiterate, I like this player a lot, and I'd love for him to be here. And now, here's the gift that best represents how I felt about the Palace game. This is a skipping record that's playing the same piece of the song over and over, repeating itself again and again, week after week, month after month, season after season, until you go from mildly irritated to full-on insane, taking to Twitter and having a complete and utter meltdown. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of the Crystal Palace game in isolation, because that's what it is, one game in isolation, I have to go through some bigger picture stuff first. And when I assess a team, any team, whether it's youth or professional, there are 3 factors to consider. Is there enough talent or even high potential talent to compete at that particular level? Is there a good culture and competitive culture to the group? And lastly, what is the best formation or system to suit that group of players? Because either you build a system or a formation or a methodology around the players you do have, or you recruit based on your preferred footballing methodology. On point one, we lost a huge talent, competitor, leader, presence in Diego Carlos, who was brought in presumably to upgrade on the talent we previously had. And now we're going to have to try to find a way of going into the market and replacing even some of what he brought to this team. I'm one of tens of thousands who have said for a very long time that our midfield is too lightweight, and that was badly exposed again on Saturday. And I feel we still rely on too few players to consistently bring us goals. As far as the competitor and culture part of things, we're mentally inconsistent. And that is especially true away from home, which predates Gerrard, frankly. And we can absolutely ask questions about Villa's playing identity. What is it? And what is it when it's not working? The cold hard truth about football is form always changes. It does. You just have to give it time. And a great example is All or Nothing Arsenal. I blasted through that series and I highly recommend it even if you don't like the Gunners. This time last year, Mikel Arteta was 0-3. They hadn't scored a goal and everyone was calling for his head, including that sad little virgin who was screaming and crying in his car, banging on his steering wheel. They finished 5th and were 2 results away from Champions League football. And right now, they are 3-0 to start the season without conceding. Would they be where they are right now had the Cronkies sacked Arteta when all that noise was occurring? I've seen teams here in North America be at the bottom of their conference and then in the late season go on runs, make the playoffs, and then even win the championship. Seattle Sounders. And the reason why they do is because there isn't the media and fan noise here in North America like there is over there. And so you could stick to the plan much easier. But in England, my goodness, tuning out the noise is sometimes harder than assessing what's happening on the field. I took quite a few bullets for being a Smith fanboy after he was sacked. And for me, it wasn't even so much about his coaching or leadership style or the culture that he created. It was about abandoning the plan. Yes, this time last year, Villa was inconsistent. Yes, it felt like there was too much comfort in the squad, which doesn't work in the ruthless Premier League. But to pin all the problems on one guy is kind of unfair. Yes, Dean Smith was made the fall guy, but this idea that the manager is some kind of messiah is preposterous. Backroom staff, analytics, recruitment, even the medical staff all have significant roles to play in the form of a team. For those people who are calling for Steven Gerrard's head right now, I want to take you through that process, okay? Because if you were to sack Steven Gerrard right now, you'd have to pay him out. And keep in mind, they had to pay compensation to Rangers for poaching him away from Ibrox initially, along with his huge staff, all of whom are also on contracts that would have to be paid out because nobody else is going to take them on. They had to pry Neil Critchley away from Blackpool with compensation. And this is all before they've even approached a new manager who may also require compensation to that club because generally speaking, the best coaches and managers are not unemployed free agents right now. So strictly from a business standpoint, this would be an absolutely catastrophic admission of failure and a financial business model that is simply not sustainable. In fact, if you abandon a plan after 29 weeks in any other industry, the questions go to the very, very top. And that brings me to Christian Purslow. It was his decision to fire Dean Smith and replace him with an inexperienced but high-profile manager. It's Mr. Purslow who builds the recruitment department and who sanctions the transfers. If there is to be a next fall guy, it is 100% the Aston Villa CEO, and I said precisely that on this show after Dean Smith was fired. If the executives truly want to abandon the Gerrard ship now, well, first of all, they weren't paying attention to what was happening at Ibrox, even though that is a relatively cushy job. It took 2 full seasons of turnover to finally find the right formula and combinations. And if it really is time now for Gerrard to go, Do we really want Christian Purslow to be the man appointing the next manager, given that he's lost the club millions of dollars in such a short period of time in making that kind of a decision? No. Christian Purslow is the next person out the door. And I think, I'm afraid to say, Johan Lange needs to follow him out if that's the case, because he is responsible for the players. And I'm quite concerned, frankly, that our fringe players are depreciating assets that can't even be sold. They all have to be loaned to Turkey, apparently. Listen, I simply cannot believe that the person that Gerrard is, the leader with the career that he had, he became that person because of the way he is, competitive. I believe he will figure it out, like he always has. And you know what? Yeah, maybe it won't be here, but he will then figure it out somewhere else. Just like Arteta and Vieira. I get it. Aston Villa is a massive club with a proud history and big ambitions. If you want to be a manager or a player here, you need a giant set of bolas to be able to deal with that, because when things go south at a club of this stature and others, the fan base turns absolutely toxic instantly. There is no patience whatsoever for any kind of long-term strategy. Isn't it interesting that Villa's best season since returning to the Premier League was when there were no fans in attendance? And so it starts with the keyboard warriors, 95% of whom haven't a Scoobies about the game of football, but there they go, spreading their toxicity. Before you know it, the mainstream media jumps on board because they're lazy. They don't want to watch Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. They see what's trending. We'll just jump on that, run with the narrative, throw gasoline on that, and poof, away we go. Now the bookies are getting in on it, trying to goad you into bets on who's the first manager to win the sack race, and the noise gets louder and louder, and that's when poor, rash, strategic decisions are made just to quell the noise. That is called self-sabotage. Are there reasons to be concerned about Villa? Sure there are. Is the Premier League unrelenting and ruthless? Obviously. Are there other clubs that are in the same or worse shape than Aston Villa? I absolutely think there are. So this idea of tearing up and abandoning the plan so soon terrifies me. We could be in worse shape in the near or mid or long term with more turmoil, more transition, more turnover. It's expensive. And this idea that a new manager can just waltz in with the new staff and wave their managerial wand and suddenly make all the individuals and the group collectively better is fantasy. That's fantasy football. And that's the mindset of most of the keyboard warriors who are creating the noise. Fantasy football. And by the way, how about the ones that are having a go at the owners for not being ambitious enough or not investing enough in the squad? These guys have invested hundreds of millions of dollars into this club. You know what would make me want to stop investing in a football club? Is ungrateful and entitled supporters who are asking for more. Because quite frankly, I would get tired of constantly having to pay compensation because of all the bad footballing mistakes you keep making over and over again. I would say, forget this. Feel free to have Dr. Tony Jaa back. The matchday commentator on my feed was Gary Taphouse, and he took this shot of Selhurst Park before arriving to work, before the fans got there. And this is the Holy Trinity show, the three key issues that defined Crystal Palace 3, Aston Villa 1. And we will start with the key statistics. And it was grim viewing for Villa fans, even though they got off to that wonderful start. And the stat I'm looking at today, successful dribbles, and especially through that midfield area. All Crystal Palace, all game long. I mean, look at the big chance difference there. And in successful dribbles, yes, a lower percentage, but higher amount. Eze, on his own, 6 for 6 in successful dribbles. This guy was amazing today. I'm not a big fan of ifs and buts, but what if Emi Buendia has an even better connection on the one-timer from Cash's cross in the dying moments of the first half and that goes top bin? Or what if Leon Bailey's top corner strike goes crossbar and down and in? Or what if VAR backs out of the Luka Dean handball or sees the push-off of him moments before that ball arrives? By the way, I love Neil Warnock's idea. I can't believe I'm saying that There should be an ex-pro in that VAR booth to consult with on these footballing moments. Moments change games. That's the fact. And I don't ever want to become a broken record like I showed you earlier. Because if you're a broken record and repeating yourself week after week, it's either because you're lazy, you don't truly understand football enough to see other issues, or you're pushing some kind of narrative. The challenge with Aston Villa, however, is that the same problems do keep recurring week after week. John McGinn, inconsistent, ineffective. Very fortunate that VAR ruled out the Jeffrey Schlupp goal because that was his man who he let go because he fell asleep and was ball watching. I rightfully praised him last week. He was excellent, but he was unable to replicate that performance again away from home the following week. And frankly, it was surreal to watch him actually get substituted on Saturday. On comes Douglas Luiz, and yes, it's so much easier to play football when you're down 2 goals. But this guy needs to play. Otherwise, why would he stay here? Why would he sign on? And I fear he leaves, and now we need 2 number 8s. And then Lucas Digne. Lucas Digne was abject on Saturday. And this is probably the most worrying and surprising aspect of this team this year, because it looks to me like teams are actually targeting him because he is so lightweight defensively. Honestly, I'm starting to wonder if Villa need to play with 3 center backs just to push Lucas Digne farther up the park and take some of the defensive responsibilities away from him, because he was prison violated on Saturday. And I can forgive the handball, but not the amount of times he was played around or over or through or lost some kind of battle with an opponent. And my problem is, who's pushing him? Augustinsson? Young? So here I am, 3 weeks into the season, sounding like a broken record again. McGinn, ineffective, inconsistent. Digne, really, really poor, and we need a better midfielder. Big issue or moment number 3, the early equalizer. Aston Villa broke one of football's 10 commandments on Saturday. Thou shalt not concede within 5 minutes of scoring. I mean, think about it. They scored a fantastic goal, a goal that cut right through Palace. It's going to be one of my favorite goals of the year. What a ball by Mings. What a flick by Bailey. And then Ollie Watkins, cool as you like, as if he's done it 1,000 times. You've silenced the crowd. You've got all the momentum that early on. Seeds of doubt are starting to appear in the home side. And what do? You allow a 60-yard ball from the right fullback that goes through the entire team and to the one danger man who is somehow in a one-on-one situation because you are so utterly stretched. Do you know, I was half expecting VAR to go back and have a look at the contact with Emi Buendia in the penalty area prior to the Zaha goal, because anywhere else on the field and at any other time in the game, that's probably a foul. We've seen those given, but that's spilt milk. And I don't mind that in that phase and just before then, Villa was aggressively hunting for a second goal, probably sensing some vulnerability, but not at the expense of leaving yourself so open that one ball can go through the entire team and set off your best player in a one-on-one situation. And by the way, apart from Konza, I did not like Big Emi's starting position on that goal. He raced out, then he was backpedaling. He's backpedaling as the shot comes in, so he's totally unbalanced. He knows it's going far post. That wasn't great. How big a goal was that, though? Like, after Villa scored, if they could have just hung on for 10 or 15 minutes, could doubt have crept into Crystal Palace's mind? They haven't had the greatest of luck against mid-table teams at Selhurst Park. They had a long stretch without wins at the end of last season. You know, is it possible that Villa could have grown into that game and grown some confidence themselves and maybe, who knows, get a second goal? We will never know. Key issue or moment number 2, diabolical defending. I'm still baffled as to what's keeping Callum Chambers out of the starting 11. I mean, we don't see what happens behind the scenes or in training, but he was the best Villa player for me overall, let alone central defender in preseason. He was the only one who wasn't on the park when a goal was scored against them. And maybe I could see that Ezri Konsa's speed was perhaps more equipped to deal with Zaha or Edouard or Eze. But what's the point of speed if you can't read the danger and stop problems before they happen? Because on the 1-1 goal, he was completely turned around. He has two choices there. You either keep him in front of you and just delay as much as you can to either wait for help or just keep yourself goal side. Or you read the danger and you go after the ball towards him and duel it or contest it or even maybe take a foul there. But he does neither. 4 minutes in, just before Villa scored, Ezri Konsa, completely open and not under any pressure, inexplicably gives the ball away. They got away with one. He was nowhere to be seen on the 3-1 goal. He could not win an aerial duel to save his life. He could not hit a ball on target in the attacking penalty area if his life depended on it. He had a great chance in the second half. And this is why the Diego Carlos injury right now is so utterly cruel to us. And I'm sorry, but if Aston Villa's hierarchy and recruitment department isn't pulling out all the stops to try and bring in real quality to replace Carlos now and potentially play with Carlos when he returns, then I worry that it will be a very stressful season ahead. Our back four was pulled completely apart time and time again. They weren't compact. They weren't cohesive. They didn't communicate. They couldn't handle the press. They couldn't handle long balls. They couldn't handle set pieces. VAR bailed them out the first time, but the penalty came from a corner because Luka Dean was badly outmatched in a duel. And if you're Callum Chambers, you must be asking yourself, what did I do wrong here? And you can't blame him, because you'll probably start on Tuesday, for feeling a little bit jaded about playing at Bolton in the Cup. And the number one big issue or moment that defined Crystal Palace 3, Aston Villa 1, excellent Eze. Last week I commented on how Boubacar Kamara could one day play in the Champions League and garner a $50 to $70 million transfer fee. I feel a bit embarrassed about that now because the context was one game versus Everton, and I think Everton is going to struggle this season. But sometimes you just have to say, my goodness, this player is brilliant, and that's not anybody's fault. Eze is a $35 to $50 million player right now. He could be playing in the Champions League right now, and he's not just going to give Aston Villa fits. He's going to give everybody in this league fits this season, even the big boys. And by the way, something really positive. He too had the exact same injury as Diego Carlos, and look at him now. So my question is, where were our scouts when Eze was emerging at QPR? It's not like he was under the radar. Everybody knew about this guy. Did we even inquire? I mean, this guy's not even an 8. He could probably play it, but he is so dynamic that what he does influences the entire midfield. And after he's beaten 1 or 2 or 3, he still manages to release the ball at the exact right moment to set up a teammate. He and Wilfried Zaha were head and shoulders the best players on the park by a mile today. It's not even close. And I just wonder if our owners are going to walk the walk, and before the window closes like the dog days of summer, they will invest in a player who can, like those two, change games and take them over right now. I actually forgot to do this last week, tally up the updatable points and stats, and our away record already doesn't look the best. None from a possible 6 points. 2 VAR decisions in this game, 1 for and 1 against. Watkins and Ings each on the board. 2 goals from those two out of 3 games would be a very good record if they kept that up. Another set-piece goal allowed. Yes, it was a penalty, but the penalty was earned from a corner. Palace is neither a top or bottom 6 club, and Emi Martinez will have to wait another week for his first clean sheet. So next up, Carabao Cup round 3 at Bolton Wanderers, who were 2-0 losers at home to Sheffield Wednesday on the weekend and are 7th in League One. Now, these are the kinds of games that can either boost your spirits and push you into round 4, or they can compound the misery because, as you know, Aston Villa will be expected to win even at a League One side. The problem is, whoever Villa puts out on Tuesday, They will collectively have never played together. I think we can count on that. Whereas Bolton will have their best side available and they will be very familiar with one another's tendencies, which is why games like this make me nervous. This is how I think they'll line up, and there'll obviously be squad rotation. And you know that Olsen needs to play, but so does Augustinsson, so does Chambers and Young. How about Big Tim, Marvelous, and Douglas Luiz in midfield behind Coutinho, Ings, and Archer? And then Archer, with rumors that he may be going out on loan if they bring in a forward-type player, well, maybe could that be Ismaila Sarr if he is, in fact, signed in time for the game on Tuesday? And although I like this, and this is a relatively strong lineup, I caution once again, this group of 11 players has collectively never played together. So I'll be reviewing the Bolton game in time for Wednesday. And before I sign off, I just want to say a huge thank you because this show has crossed the 8,000 subscribers mark. Now that is absolutely bonkers for me. And I know many of my viewers, because we could see it on our analytics, aren't even YouTube members. They're just watching on social media, so they can't even subscribe. That is absolutely unbelievable, and I'm so grateful and humbled by it, along with the plus 500,000 views in just over a year. I mean, it's completely bonkers in my mind. Until the next time, stay positive, stay well, and as always, up the mighty Villa.